Well, good morning again. I bring you greetings from Bishop Anderson House in Chicago. My name is Matt Siege. You might read my bio in the program this morning. I've been a lot of places, and now I find myself in Hinsdale, Illinois this morning. I'm grateful that you're here. In Pennsylvania, a couple flakes fall down and nobody shows up, especially at 8:30 in the morning. So I'm glad that you're here and you can listen to me ramble on for a few minutes. I'm one of the chaplains at Bishop Anderson House, and I provide spiritual care at Stroger Cook County Hospital. And I also manage our spiritual care visitor training program that maybe some of you have participated in over the years. So this is Teddy Bear Sunday, and I was reminded this morning when I saw some of the teddy bears that this is a great time to buy a teddy bear because it's right after Valentine's Day. And so I assume everyone will go out after church today to the clearance section at Target or wherever and buy a teddy bear. These teddy bears we give out to children in the hospital. Even adults are overjoyed when they receive something to comfort them. Whatever meaning is held by a teddy bear, it helps so many people in the hospital to receive comfort. So I thank you for collecting these bears for us. A couple things that we're doing at Bishop Anderson House that are new. We now have 2 chaplains. So I have a colleague that helps, we do spiritual care together in the trauma ICU and other areas of the hospital. We have partnered with the Gift of Hope, which is an organ donation procurement organization. And we're interested in how spiritual care can impact the ability for folks to discern if they want to donate their loved ones' organs and how we can help them in that process. We've also been working on social media, getting word out there and what we do. And our spiritual care training program is now going online. Before it was all individual sessions in person. And now we just have one day that you have to participate in, and the rest you can do online. So if anyone has an interest in being a spiritual care visitor or learning more, you can train how to do that in a congregation or out in the community. That is a program we offer. So that's enough to talk about Bishop Anderson House. But I had to do that since I'm here representing, you know, right? So if you want to hear more about that, you can see me after the service. Thank you again for your support on behalf of Tommy Rogers, our executive director, who's on vacation in Mexico right now. Let's get to our sermon for this morning. I'm going to start with a prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing and acceptable to you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. I invite you to recall some of your happiest moments in your life thus far. These will be different for each of us. Perhaps times when you felt exhilarated by experiencing something new, a discovery of life. Times of good news, feeling a sense of accomplishment, being able to help someone, perhaps a first kiss, a baby being born, getting married, making peace with a loved one, parachuting off a cliff, landing that job, seeing a child grow and be successful, good medical test results, doing something you just really enjoy doing. How about feeling loved? How about experiencing and somehow just knowing that what just happened was a God moment? Happiness, moments of happiness. I bet God was there. Different though for each one of us. So I hope that brought something to your mind of a feeling or a memory or a place or a smell that gave you that sense of, yeah, I was really happy. That was a happy moment for me. Perhaps you're experiencing happiness today. Maybe you're not. We all have those days. But what happens in today's gospel, to me, is a moment of God, a time of happiness for people gathered. The story follows the narrative describing the 12 disciples who Jesus chose after a night of prayer to God on a mountain, and finds gathered on the plain a great multitude of people who have come to hear him and to be healed physically and emotionally. That day they are not disappointed. The text says that he heals not just a few, but all of those who come to him, hungering in so many ways for dignity and acceptance, for wholeness and health, for forgiveness, freedom, and hope. As I read that passage, I was like, all of this happened in one day? I think this is a lifelong journey for all of us. That's where I went with this. Luke's Sermon on the Plain is often overshadowed by a longer, more developed sermon. You know, the Sermon on the Mount that we find in the Gospel of Matthew. Blessed are they, blessed are those. Well, if you like long sermons, that's the one for you. But I'm getting to do the shorter one today. And you're like, yes. There are differences in each accounts, each having the potential to hold special meaning for us. I'm just going to point out a few of those because I think they have meaning for this passage and might spark some interest in you. In Luke, we find Jesus speaking at the same level as the crowd, the same level, kind of a little bit above you here, but on the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew, Jesus is above the crowd, on the mountain. Jesus addresses a crowd of people with very little to offer except their enthusiasm for something to be different in their lives. Jesus stands with the crowd in Luke, not above them. He also says, blessed are you who are poor, not those who are poor, the words used in Matthew. How does you and those differ in how we perceive his words? This is close, you. It's intimate. Jesus is right here with us. And he does not just open his mouth and teach us in Matthew, but in Luke, he focuses his eyes right on the disciples. And you're like, oh, I hope this guy up here is looking at me. Jesus focuses his eyes right on the disciples. This is close. This is real. I find that particularly significant, as it is not so much that the people are able to see God in this encounter with Jesus, but what is extremely hopeful is how the disciples and all those would-be followers of Jesus are seen by God. Not that we see God, but that we are seen by God. And a final difference. When somebody asked you what you learned today, in addition to Luke's version being shorter, there are 4 woes at the end of the passage. Woe is me. That you said that in your life. Jesus says, but woe to you about this, woe to you about that. Perhaps a reminder, after the blessings, a reminder that Jesus means what he says on behalf of God. That yes, things go down in our lives, and we may move away when something bad happens from God, which can be a natural human reaction. And that sometimes we just stray. We do things that we don't like, that we did. And humans, there are logical consequences that occur. Not because God causes them, but because they occur. I've certainly known them in my life. It's a challenge for us to think about how God continues to speak to us in our lives and how we evaluate our blessings beliefs, and woes. When I read these instructional passages of Jesus, gosh, I want to know that I'm on the right path, that I really understand them. What if I misunderstand what Jesus is telling me or what I'm feeling from God? However, I'm fairly certain that no one has a final certitude beyond a feeling or from what we learn and can use. No one can offer that kind of certitude. Instead, as in every age past, we are offered a way, a journey of faith, says Renita Weems. A way, a journey of faith. But one thing I do know for certain is how we respond, how we live, what we do matters. Do you believe that? What we do matters. I was looking at your website because, I want to know where I'm going. At least I get a picture of the church and when I'm driving by in the snow and I'm skidding, I can, stop by. I think what you were doing here at Redeemer matters. It matters to you. It matters to others. It matters that you showed up this morning. It matters to God. The many ways that you give back to the community, our organization. I see you have prayer groups, a variety of worship experiences that give people deeper meaning to explore God and to worship. Lots of stuff for youth and young adults. Faith on tap, I love that. Your recent entering into the Reconciling in Christ movement. And then all those pictures that I see on your website. There's a lot of smiles. There's a lot of fun. Unless you're paying everybody to smile. And I'm sure there's times of loss as well, not only celebration, where you support one another and help each other not feel as alone. I'm sure there's challenges. You aren't perfect as a church, as no church is. But what you do matters. It matters to God through the blessings and through the woes. Every morning I get up and I wonder if what I'm going to do today is really going to matter. I go to work, I go to the hospital, and I encounter people who are very different from me at the county hospital. I meet people who have experienced violence. I meet people who are dying with whatever condition. I meet people who make it out, and they recreate and rebound in their lives from their health conditions and their traumas. I wonder how I participate in the realm of God. What do I do that makes a difference as a chaplain? Oftentimes it's a matter of just being there and listening, giving a space for someone to be heard. Perhaps it's one of the few times in their life when they've actually had someone to listen to them, to care, and just be there with them. I meet people who are trying to find strength from something beyond themselves because they cannot find it within themselves to move forward in their life. They realize that they need a presence beyond them, a God, however they see it, that they can cling to, that they can rely upon, that can meet them face to face in their eyes and to lead them forward. Perhaps it's even a teddy bear that can make the difference that day. The passage says about being poor. I don't think it's about money all the time, or wealth, or what we have, but it's about how rich we feel inside, how our spirit is. And I think that's what Jesus is getting at in this passage as well. That he wants our spirit to be well, that he wants us to be happy, that he wants us to help others. William Willimon once wrote that a sermon is a sermon when it is about God. We learn implications for human behavior only after we learn what God is, who God is and what God is up to. What's God up to in your life this day? Perhaps today's sermon is a glimpse into what we mean by a God who is defined by the values of the Beatitudes and the woes. I wonder what it would be like, and perhaps this is something that you can do this week. What are your own Beatitudes and what are your own woes in life? What is your rule of life that you live by, that you continue to develop? Perhaps we can look at some modern day Beatitudes and woes. Blessed is when. Woe is when. Blessed is when people tell the truth. Blessed is when people stop to listen. Woe is when we're judgmental. The list goes on and on and on. I'm coming to a close here, but maybe you can think about those Beatitudes and woes and where you meet Jesus face to face and how that impacts your life. I believe that our God is a God who has nothing. Our God is a God of those who have nothing but God. That actually includes us too at times in our lives. There are times when we are naked as the poorest of the poor, and when we are down and out of happiness, not even ready for the sermon on the plane. I gotta admit, sometimes I look around and things don't often resemble that beautiful created order that I'm hoping for much at all. But if we still believe that we are headed towards a heavenly banquet where everyone has a place at the table, we are reminded to live more fully, more intentionally, in the already part of already but not yet nature of the reign of God, anticipating the coming of the new realm. David Halwerda says it well. The shape of God's future as we envision it must be here and must shape the present. And I say, we are to take part in that. And indeed, this should bring us some happiness and some God moments. Happiness and God moments. May you have that. May you find that. May it be so. Amen.